The phrase "Continental wars need continental railways" is usually associated with the American Civil War. The conflict was fought over an area the size of Western Europe, and railways were crucial for supplying food and ammunition to troops on an unprecedented scale. Before the American Civil War, armies were limited by the ability to move supplies via horses and wagons. The Confederate rail system was poorly interconnected, had different gauges, and suffered from a lack of maintenance, making it difficult to reap the full benefits of a continental network. It is not generally recognized that the British rail system was in a similar beleaguered situation in the build-up to D-Day, but was rescued by so-called Bolero Locos. US-built locomotives brought to Britain as part of Operation Bolero from 1942 to 1944 were critical to the logistical success of D-Day. Their significance lay in their role in averting a transport crisis that threatened the entire invasion plan by addressing the severe shortage of locomotives on British railways, ensuring that the massive influx of US personnel and equipment could be moved in preparation for D-Day. By 1943, the British railway system was overburdened and suffering from a shortage of heavy-duty locomotives. In an effort to stave off an impending crisis in railway transportation, W. Tavrell Harriman, the U.S. Lend-Lease representative in London, himself an executive of a large American rail line, arranged to have Otto Jabelman, mechanical engineer of the Union Pacific Railroad, sent to London in late 1942 to look into the British locomotive situation. His findings, which became available in January 1943, indicated 1. A serious deficiency of motive power arising from greatly increased traffic, 2. A decrease in the production of new locomotives, and 3. Insufficient maintenance resulting in too high a percentage of locomotives being laid up for repairs. Blackout restrictions also contributed to abnormal operating difficulties. According to Jabelman, the 400 American locomotives ordered for Bolero traffic, of which only 26 had been delivered up to the 28th of December, 1942, were urgently needed as a stopgap measure until British locomotive construction picked up. A definite understanding with the British concerning the employment of the Bolero locomotives was not obtained until mid-May 1943. Though regarded as U.S. Army property, this equipment was to be placed in a joint stockpile under American and British control. As the locomotives arrived, they were sent to a civilian railway shop for final assembly and adjustment before assignment to the British Railways.
Now we come to one of the peak moments of the lease-lend period. Railway transport difficulties in England were growing enormous, and to help alleviate the strain on our loco shops, the Yanks sent over a number of their own locomotives which had to be prepared for the track on arrival here. This work couldn't be considered strange to our eastly people. A locomotive is a locomotive the world over, they said. But the American tendency to put so many of the works on the outside of the boiler casing was a bit puzzling, even though it looked quite impressive that way. However, these engines were successfully got ready for their European war service, and no vital parts were left over. They were intended primarily to restock the French railways after our inevitable invasion. It was already known that the Germans had requisitioned the greater number of French locos for their own use. Damage to what remained was likely to occur as the result of our own pre-invasion bombing. So until D-Day, these American locos served their apprenticeship somewhere in England. Later on, they did a grand job supporting our armies along their difficult road to victory.
The British Railway Executive Committee had general supervision of the Bolero locomotives, but the U.S. Army Theatre Chief of Transportation kept detailed records of their utilization, operating condition, and location, so as to be able to recall them on short notice if they should be needed for military purposes. These locomotives were essential for clearing ports. In the first 5 months of 1944 alone, approximately 6.1 million measurement tons of cargo arrived in the UK, running 100 special freight trains with roughly 20,000 loaded wagons every week. To aid the movement of the massive military cargo, over 264,000 train miles were cut from timetables by late May 1944 and all restaurant carriages withdrawn in April. The U.S. Transportation Corps designed these locomotives to be robust and capable of being maintained under difficult conditions, transporting troops and equipment from ports on the Clyde and Mersey to the south coast within 18 hours. These locomotives served as a crucial part of the U.S. Army Services of Supply, SOS, that enabled the rapid assembly of military power in southern England before June 6, 1944, directly enabling the success of the Normandy landings. Beginning early in 1945, the American 280 locomotives were progressively recalled by the U.S. Army to be prepared for service on the continent, and at the end of March, 355 were assembled at Ebervale Junction. The locomotives were designed for quick deployment in theatre and versatile enough to run on various European railway gauges, and were shipped to Normandy to facilitate the Allied breakout, providing the heavy lifting capacity needed to move fuel and supplies to rapidly advancing armies. Bolero Locos were a great aid to the British Railways in handling wartime traffic and represented the major American contribution to the relief of the overburdened transportation facilities of the United Kingdom.